Mr. Carter, you need to sign these papers. It is about your daughter's future.
She is staying with me.
The front door of a small brick house creaked open just as a black Mercedes rolled to a stop outside, and Daniel Carter's stomach dropped. He had quit his job 3 weeks ago, walked away from the only paycheck keeping him and his 5-year-old daughter afloat, and now the CEO of the company he'd abandoned was standing in his driveway. Daniel pulled little Zoe closer to his side, her small hand gripping the hem of his shirt, and braced himself for whatever storm was about to walk up his front steps. If you believe in second chances, in kindness finding its way back to good people, hit that like button right now, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, share this with someone who needs a little hope today, and subscribe to Kindness Corner so you never miss a story like this one. 6 months earlier, Daniel had been drowning. His wife had passed after a long illness, leaving him alone to raise Zoe while working 60-hour weeks as a warehouse supervisor. He missed her first day of kindergarten. He missed her fever spiking at 2 a.m. because he was on a night shift he couldn't afford to skip. Every morning he dropped her at his elderly neighbor's house before sunrise, and every evening he picked her up long after dark, her small face already asleep against the couch cushions. He loved his job once. He was good at it. But there was no version of good employee that also meant good father, not with the hours they demanded of him. The breaking point came on a Tuesday, when Zoe's school called during his shift to say she'd fallen on the playground and was asking for him, crying, and his supervisor told him he couldn't leave the floor. Daniel stood there in his safety vest, phone in hand, and felt something inside him quietly break. That night he wrote his resignation letter. He had no backup plan, no savings cushion worth mentioning, just a certainty that his daughter needed her father more than his manager needed him on the line. He submitted it the next morning and walked out into an uncertain future with his head held high and his hands shaking. The weeks that followed were brutal. Rent loomed. The refrigerator grew emptier by the day. Daniel applied to dozens of jobs, but nothing matched what he needed: flexible hours, a living wage, understanding for a man raising a child alone. He started skipping meals so Zoe wouldn't notice hers were smaller too. He told himself it was temporary, that something would give, but doubt crept into every quiet hour after she fell asleep. So when that Mercedes parked outside his house, Daniel assumed the worst. Maybe there was a lawsuit. Maybe some paperwork he'd missed. He watched a broad-shouldered driver step out first, scanning the street like a bodyguard, before the back door opened and a woman in a tailored beige suit stepped out holding a clipboard. He recognized her instantly. Diane Whitfield, CEO of the company he used to work for. She had visited the warehouse floor exactly once in his 3 years there, and yet here she was, walking up his cracked concrete path like she'd done it 100 times. Daniel opened his mouth to apologize, to explain, to defend a decision he still believed in, but Diane spoke first. She said his old supervisor had mentioned why he left, and it had stayed with her for weeks. She said no employee should ever have to choose between comforting a hurt child and keeping their job, and that hearing his story made her realize how many other parents in her company were probably making the same impossible choice, silently, without anyone noticing. She held out the clipboard. It wasn't a lawsuit. It was an offer letter, for a new position, one built around flexible scheduling for parents, a role that let him lead from home 3 days a week and start a program to make sure no other father would ever get that phone call from a school and be told to stay on the floor. Daniel stood frozen on his porch, Zoe's small hand still wrapped around his fingers, and felt his eyes burn. He had quit believing anyone above him would ever understand what mattered most, and here was proof standing on his welcome mat, offering not charity, but respect. If this story touched something in you, if it reminded you that kindness still finds its way to the people who need it most, please take a moment to like this video and leave a comment below. It truly means the world to this small channel. And before you go, I'd love it if you typed the word grateful in the comments, just to let me know this story reached your heart. Daniel signed that letter on his porch steps with Zoe watching, and for the first time in months, he let himself believe that walking away from what broke him had led him straight to what would heal him.